Hello, everybody. Welcome to my talk. My name is Meri Stiles, and I'm Associate Professor of Social Work at Damon University in Amherst, New York. I'm also the Artivist Curator of the Social Justice Art Gallery in the Social Work Department. So today I'm going to talk about a study that I conducted based on interviews with artists that use social justice practices as part of their artistic practice. I'm a social worker and also an artist myself, and I've been really interested in how art can be used to kind of advocate for a lot of the social work areas that are in our wheelhouse. A lot of people don't know that social workers are trained on 3 levels of practice. We're trained as therapists, we're trained as community change organizers, we're also trained as being able to work in government and bring legislation and sort of really work for the public good. So art is something that I'm personally interested in, but I'm also professionally interested in how to use art-based practices really to promote social welfare and a healthier world for everyone. So I was really interested in, how do we evaluate art practices that might be put in place to do social change or to inform the public. And after I began to conduct the interviews and gather information, I realized that I really had to kind of start with a thematic analysis of the interviews before I could really think about how to evaluate anything. And so this talk is really kind of about that process and the themes that arose. But I think it's always good kind of get some definitions out there. Artivism is in Eve Ensler's definition. Artivism has all the ingredients of activism, but is charged with the wild creations of art. I think that's a beautiful frame to work from. And some of the approaches for the artists that I interviewed, some of the approaches they used were documentary art, socially engaged art, ecological art, and political art. Mainly, folks worked out of one or more than one of these kind of methodologies. Just to give a framework, social justice has used art for a long time. Really, the original kind of processes that happened were art that reflected social injustice. And so Lewis Hines' photography of child labor really helped to end child labor practices. Dethea Lang's kind of really famous image of migrant mother was influential in really bringing about the social safety net. So it came about during the Great Depression, and it made an impact for a lot of the policies and laws that we have in place today. More recently, if we think about the Dakota Pipeline, you can see kind of some of that artwork that really helped to bring that information out into the public so people knew what was going on. Really famous Guerrilla Girls, trying to get attention to women's art in museums. We've had some movement in this, but it's still a far cry from where it needs to be. And Childish Gambino, This Is America, his video and song is really a metaphor for racism and gun violence in America. And if you haven't seen it, it's as perfect as you can get, sending a message out and sort of clarifying issues. It's a beautiful, beautiful anthem. We've also have I think by now everybody has seen Just Stop Oil. the protests that have happened in art galleries and museums around the world. It's been really effective, whether you feel kind of protective of the art or not. The message is out there, and I'll just say that, you know, in this particular protest, which was soup thrown on Van Gogh's sunflowers, there's a piece of glass there, so the art itself is protected, but the value in this protest is pay attention. This is what's happening. And then Unbearable this is a sculpture from the Climate Change Conference in 2015. You can't unsee the powerful image that this portrays. So art's had a pretty active and successful life, putting forward social causes. And so, of course, I'm interested in how I can kind of be involved in that process myself. The study that I conducted is a phenomenological approach. It's using qualitative research and interviews, and really to help explore and understand the artist's own perspectives from their lived experience, about how their art is making an impact, or why they work in this art. They go about these processes. These interviews were conducted from June 2023 to May 2024, so this month. And what I'm going to present today is kind of the themes that came from that. And this is preliminary. I still need to involve at least 2 more people to kind of triangulate my findings. So what you're going to hear today is really my preliminary findings. I used snowball sampling. I had 8 women artists, and the age range was from 37 to 80. As I said, these were in-depth, semi-structured interviews. I used thematic analysis in Atlas TI, and the study questions are at the end of this PowerPoint, so you should be able to access those so you can sort of see kind of the frame that I worked from. So the emerging themes I'm going to present for today, the first theme was really this deep connection that all of the artists had to nature and landscape. It was really beautiful to uncover how this is really foundational for each of the artists' work that they do. Social justice themes that emerged were feminism, political concerns, that was like racism, gun violence, and environmentalism. Third theme that came about was the importance of art for raising awareness of social issues and creating community engagement and dialogue. And the fourth theme was really kind of around success or evaluation of art. So, and some of the things that came out of that were just, you know, selling art as a form of success, feeling personally satisfied with the work that they did, and others connecting to the art. So let's look at some of the kind of the quotations or comments that really support my kind of discovery of these particular themes. Deep connection to nature and landscape. So I grew up observing nature. It's just such a huge gift from the universe that I ended up there. We were outside all of the time, winter, summer, whatever. I thought everybody had this sort of relationship that I had to all of the birds, to the tree foliage, to the Queen Anne's lace. I realized years ago we had this house for like 35 years. It's an oak forest. They cut it down and made many houses just like it, all in the neighborhood. When I walk around the streets here at night, I realize, you know, this is a forest. Everyone sees Vermont life image. But there's so much more. There's bones in the landscape and really deep organic connections. I have a memory of being on a sled drawn by an ox drawn by an oxen through the woods and jumping off to get the sap buckets. There's another quote that I'll just read. I couldn't fit it on this slide. I don't know what we would do in the world if we didn't have visual reframings of our worlds. I mean, every time you look out the window, you're seeing a work of art. That's just amazingly beautiful and rich. And that artistic lens of seeing what we often don't see, right? Some of the social justice themes. When Roe v. Wade got overturned, I had all of these questions, and I was dumbfounded, shocked, and horrified, like everybody. But the more I thought about it, the worse it got. I was like, I don't know what to do, except I guess I have to express it in art. Of course, I have a reaction to all different things going on in the world that are horrible. I started making political work in response to the Iraq War. I was using crude oil, just finding ways to talk about it, what was going on, but in an artistic way that was not directly obvious to the viewer what it was really about. I don't know how to have a voice other than artistically. Others might not be in a position to tell those stories about environmentalism, and so I'm motivated to get up and say, all right, how can I share this story in a way that is meaningful and relevant and inspiring for others? And the story is, come into the mess. Let's pay attention to it ourselves. And it is actually possible to reframe the narrative. So some really kind of powerful ways of capturing social justice and kind of the motivation of the artists, what inspired them to get involved with social justice themes. Another theme that came up was kind of raising awareness and creating community engagement and dialogue through their art. And this one's really close to home for me. This happened in Buffalo, New York, and one of my students was directly involved in the victimization that happened in this horrible event. The mass shootings at the Tops supermarket, Buffalo, and seeing a story about a father's group collecting toy guns, because in their neighborhood, they see the kids get toy guns, and by the time they're a teenager, they want the real thing. I call the guy up. I didn't know him at all, and I said, why can't we take these guns and make some art out of it? The first step in your stepping stone of social change should be to be working with artists, because they're the ones who are going to be spinning the message, so to speak. And they are also educating people to continue to have the skills to be able to do that. Whew, powerful. My goal is to be the prompt for conversations, not to necessarily give answers, but to help ask questions. It's really just not about the thing, art. I feel like once we've experienced the thing, we kind of don't need it anymore. But it's what happens after that, the sort of snowball effect of all the ideas and conversations that we have. And there was another quote that I wanted to read. It's a bringing together. It's a much softer way to comment when you want to comment. It can be a more unified comment. It can be much more universal than, to me, words. And so, asking about how, the study was really, I was hoping to kind of articulate how we might evaluate projects that artists do, and knowing kind of the artist framework that's so delicate, that artistic sort of miracle that happens, and how evaluation might affect that. So I would try to be as gentle as I could about this question. And so I was pretty surprised by some of the responses here. Um, Within my own work, a marker of success would be that I've sold something, that like one of the markers of success. Another would be that I am able to work with other people in the community to create something, whether it's like a show or a collaborative thing, that I'm actually able to like work towards a goal with other humans. I think personally, if it's successful, there's a weird magic that happens where it surprises me a little bit. I think it's successful to me if it's a bit new, if a bit new happens, or there's a little glimmer that happens that I wasn't anticipating. This is a way for me to feel empowered and have a voice. But what I'm also hoping, besides me being able to express myself, is that someone is going to see it and be moved. Whether it's like they're angry, they don't agree with it, they love it, they're passionate about it. They call their mother and they're like, oh my God, we have to be bigger and louder in our gun violence protest. There was another quote I wanted to read. If you're meeting other people who are saying they've gotten something from what you're doing, or even if they just understand you, there's just like some little spark in there that makes us feel connected as humans, even if we're having our own separate trips or whatever. But yeah, we don't feel alone. I think that's successful. It kind of connects people. So, it's probably important to kind of think about, well, is sort of artivism successful in general? Not necessarily, from the artists that I spoke to, but kind of outside of those conversations. What does the research say? And I wrote a book chapter a while ago on using art for environmental justice, and I had come across a couple of things that really helped me to understand the value of art. And one of the things that I feel is really important here is that this quote from Gagin: "Art can illustrate the ambiguities and contradictions of reality, which is helpful for considering the complexities of, for example, climate change." And this made me think of the artists that talked about using crude oil and in their art. And the story she told was that she went, I think she was in Texas at the time, and she contacted an oil company to see if she could get crude oil. And she sort of said she was an artist, and they worked with her, and she had to go drive out into the middle of nowhere and meet this guy. And she said the whole time she was like a little bit nervous if this was going to be dangerous or not. But she met the gentleman. He took her out to the field, and she asked him about his work there, and and he was talking about his work, and he said that he really felt like this was his duty to kind of work on this oil field and to be part of facilitating oil for the American people, to heat their houses, to drive their cars, and that was part of his legacy over many generations, had been doing this work. And the artist said, it really shifted her frame, and she realized that, wow, this is a really complex thing. This does good for a lot of people. It does a lot of harm as well. And so really kind of thinking about, she really shifted her thinking to a more holistic kind of understanding of the nuances of these social movements, that we really have to think about the complexity in order to be successful. It also provides a sense of being supported in your efforts. So if you're involved in some sort of art process, so if it's an installation that's being done somewhere and people in the community are part of that, or if you're experiencing an art show on a certain theme and there's an artist talk, you're with like-minded people, and you begin to feel that making some changes is possible, and that's really important. It can promote a sense of community and belonging, which really can increase and sustain participation in the process. And out of sort of that COP, sort of the climate change conference where they presented in 2015, where they presented a bunch of art around climate, one of the things they found was that art that kind of brings forth solutions is more successful than art that is just kind of doom and gloom. So for social work, what are some of the roles that social workers might take? Could be artists that is engaged in art practices, that we could be community organizers, really making creative spaces or fundraising for projects. We can be brokers that bring artists and others together for artivism. We can educate students about this practice. And we can be researchers like myself, trying to figure out how might you successfully kind of evaluate these projects, because we all know they're not going to happen without funding. And if there's funding, there has to be evaluation. So it's a bit tricky. Here's some references for you. Connect with me. Love to hear from you. And this is one of my pieces of art, War and Innocence. And the study questions. I wish I were there at the conference, maybe next year. Thank you so much for listening to my talk, and don't be shy if you want to reach out. I'd love to hear from you. May we all be well.